my name is Alternative Host Ticket, apparently, but it's John Kavanaugh, and we have the CEO, Erich Mische of SAVE, which stands for Suicide Awareness Voices of Education. And he is here to give a very critical talk. I'll let him take the stage, and I'll manage Q&A afterwards. Erich, you have the floor.
Well, fabulous. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for joining this conversation today. I'm the CEO of SAVE, which stands for Suicide Awareness Voices of Education. We are a 36-year-old Minnesota, United States-based nonprofit that focuses on suicide awareness and suicide prevention, which really is the lead-in to this conversation today that John has been kind enough to introduce here. Which has to do with a campaign that we, along with a number of partners, launched last week called KIDS, which stands for Keep It Digitally Safe. And it is a campaign contest to encourage young people and really anybody from all over the world to submit ideas for what warning labels might look like on social media platforms. And so let me set the stage a little bit about the whole conversation about warning labels, which is not a new concept. We know that warning labels exist on tobacco products, they exist on alcohol products, they exist on any number of products which, for the most part, are deemed to be by society legal for consumption, legal for use, but have clearly identified dangers to them. And so we also know that warning labels by themselves are not the end-all, be-all solution. For example, if you look at tobacco products, while warning labels have been a part of, on the side of cigarettes and tobacco products for decades, those started out being much more benign in terms of their warning. And as you all know, tobacco companies and cigarette companies pushed back mightily against those types of warnings and labels, because they thought that they would harm their product sales, which frankly was part of the reason behind them. But it was also to recognize what had become the growing public health risk to physical health from the consumption of these products. And so eventually, as a part of public education campaigns, warning labels became an affixed part of tobacco products. And then as years progressed, other public education campaigns came to play, and warning labels became much more descriptive. They became much more ubiquitous and tied to regulatory changes and other types of efforts to hold big tobacco accountable for their products. We began to see a significant decline in tobacco use here in the United States and actually in many other places throughout the world. And so the setup for warning labels on social media platforms really comes about as a result of conversations that many of us who have been part of this conference have been involved with, which is, how do we make sure that social media platforms remain accessible to young people, but that we also ensure that they are safe? And for far too long, big tech companies, those who own these platforms, those who built them, have told us that there's this false trade-off, that you can either have safety or you can have access, but you can't have both. All of us who've been a part of these efforts absolutely reject this notion that the same technology that these companies employ to build these platforms, which have become embedded in the DNA of young people and really all of us, that technology can't be used to make those products safer, whether it's changing their algorithms or preventing them from targeting young people or allowing this kind of endless loop that addicts young people and others to the products, and whether they're selling something, whether they're showing them content, which is creating self-harm, which is creating significant issues with body and other types of risks that we're seeing every single minute of every single day, everywhere around the world. So our organization was a part of a several hundred coalition member organization for the last couple of years that's been working on passing a bill at the federal level called the Kids Online Safety Act. We've also been involved on a lot of state-based initiatives related to requiring social media platforms to create age-appropriate design code in products that they release to young people for their use. As everyone knows, the pushback from big tech has been enormous. The amount of money, the amount of lobbying, the amount of pressure that they brought to bear to defeat this legislation nationally across the country has been immense. Thus, last summer, the Surgeon General at that time, Vivek Murthy, said that he felt that there should be warning labels on social media platforms. So a number of organizations, and I'm going to share who some of those are, but first I'm going to share with you the website for what we have launched, which is called the Kids Campaign, Keep It Digitally Safe. And it is a campaign that's intended to call warning labels on social media platforms. It's not a campaign where we put in all the details of how that's going to happen, but it's an opportunity for young people and others to share with others what warning labels could look like on social media platforms, what they could look like on apps, what they could sound like on radio and television, what they might look like on billboards. These are the members of the organizations right now that have endorsed this campaign that are a part of the effort to share information and to call for warning labels on social media platforms. Each one of these organizations has their own constituency group that they work with. A number of these organizations are parents who have lost children to either suicide or through sales of illegal drugs, or in some cases, horrible connection to games like choking games. We believe that there's an opportunity to leverage this campaign to continue this conversation about what do we have to do to ensure that we create safety on social media platforms every single day. The goal here is not to say that warning labels are the only solution. In fact, I would argue that they are simply one solution. We need policymakers to step up, to hold big tech accountable by saying, look, you've got a product out there in the same way that big tobacco had products, the way that the automobile industry had products, and you've got to warn people about the dangers that are involved, not only in those products, but you need to stop doing things that we know and you know are creating more harms every single day on these platforms. The reality is the addictive algorithmic features of these platforms are simply creating a generation of kids that are as hooked to social media platforms as generations of kids like myself were hooked to cigarettes. I smoked cigarettes for 20 years. I started smoking when I was 12 years old. And the reality is that I got hooked because the tobacco companies and the cigarette companies knew that if they could adjust the chemicals, if they could adjust the culture, if they could adjust my thinking about the importance of cigarettes in my life, they had a reliable customer for life. And that's what we've seen happen with social media platforms. It should come as no surprise that prior to the full-scale launch of most social media platforms that we know today, that suicide rates among young people were actually on the decline. And then once we started to see the ubiquity of these social media platforms, those suicide rates began to increase. And then in addition to that, we started to see a massive increase of things like sextortion, sex trafficking, the sale of illegal drugs to kids, and significant harms to mental health as a result of the types of images, the types of information, and the types of predators that kids were starting to see on social media platforms. So at its core, this campaign is about continuing to raise in the public consciousness and with policymakers the harms of social media, to make sure that parents understand that when their kids go online, when they go into that community, whether it's Meta, Facebook, it's Instagram, it's Snapchat, it's YouTube, that there are harms present there, and they need to be aware of that, and kids need to be aware of that too. And our goal is to engage those young people in a conversation and ask them to share with us, what do warning labels mean to you? What kind of message would resonate with your peers and your friends that would make them aware that that interaction that they're going to have with social media has the potential to be harmful to their health and could actually result in their death? And while that sounds really severe, you've already heard speakers throughout this conference who've experienced firsthand the harms of social media on their children, on their loved ones, and others. This is no longer something that needs some kind of scientific discovery or proof. We are living it every single day with people who are seeing these harms, who are experiencing them. We work with families and parents all the time who are dealing with situations where their children are being sextorted, where they are facing significant predator attacks, and those kids are struggling simply to have a conversation and stay alive with people. We need to make sure that we call out these dangers and make them visible to the average person. One of the challenges that we have for those of us who are involved in advocacy and public policy is we have a tendency to get so laser focused on the subject matter that we forget that the vast majority of the public has no idea what an algorithm is. They have no idea what the specific section of a piece of legislation is or what it means. What they do understand is that when they have children who are facing harms on social media, that we need to do something to protect those kids. And at its core, that's what this campaign is all about. It's about making sure that we share with the public, here are these harms, these are what they look like, here's a warning for everybody. Be careful, be cautious. We know that every click has a cost, and it's time that we label the risk. In the end, what we're hoping for an outcome here is that every state in the United States see some introduction of some type of warning label legislation. We hope to see on a federal level the reintroduction of bills like the Stop the Scroll Act by Senator Fetterman and Senator Britt, which assigns a warning label to social media platforms. But above all else, what we hope that we are able to spur in this process and in this campaign, besides great ideas about what warning labels might look like on social media, is that we empower parents and trusted adults and their children and young people to talk to one another, so that we remove the stigma for young people who may be under the burden of in a situation where maybe they shared a photo with somebody and now they've got that person sextorting them, where they've got somebody online who is stalking them and they don't know what to do, and to empower them to talk to a parent or talk to a trusted adult without the stigma and fear that they're going to be punished, that they're somehow or another going to be considered having done something bad. We need to give young people the space to be able to talk to parents and trusted adults and share their fears and their concerns and the very risks that they're facing. And if we can accomplish that, above all else, we believe that we will have done something incredibly important to help protect young lives and help protect their lives from the harms on these social media platforms. Again, the campaign is called Kids Keep It Digitally Safe. At the end, we're going to have all the website has all the details about how do you submit your ideas. We're going to have a public vote on it, and there's also going to be winning entries. We'll get a $5,000, a $3,000, and a $2,000 educational scholarship. And so we hope that wherever you live, whatever part of the world, that you'll share this campaign with your networks, with your friends, with your family, and others. Let's get people involved in giving voice to these harms and these issues, and make sure that all of us together have an opportunity to talk about what we can do to make social media not only accessible for everybody, but that we keep it safe for everybody as well. So with that, I'm going to wrap up, and I'm happy to answer any questions or comments that anybody might have. I'm also happy to send out more information to folks if they're interested in learning more about the campaign and being a part of it, whether it's being a partner that endorses the campaign or just wants to have information that they can share out to their network about how we can create a really, really powerful message that every click has a cost and it's time to label the risk.
Thank you. I have a few comments as we wait for Q&A to come through. First thing that I really appreciate from you is gathering the people who are affected by this and getting their thoughts and voices on it, and making it collaborative. There's something, I run a nonprofit as well, and what we work on is a concept called co-design, where you work with the stakeholders and the people that you will be enacting change with. And that model is very sustainable because you're doing exactly, the service for the right people and the right reasons. So can you share a little bit about how you came to that conclusion, how you came to that approach? I came through it through scholarly purposes, as an example, where I reached out to people who had studied sociology for a long time. So we're just curious where that came from for you.
Yeah, I mean, part of it just simply has to do with the type of work that we do, right? In suicide prevention, it really is a collaborative. You've got to work across, different systems and with people. And so as we began to envision this campaign, we reached out to folks that we had been working with on the Kids Online Safety Act legislation here in the United States, and started reaching out to some of those folks and parents that we'd been working with and said, hey, we've got this idea. We don't want to do this alone, right? We want to have this as a partnership and a collaboration. And, we live in a world right now where there's a lot of things going on, and as everybody knows, right? And so, as we began reaching out to different groups and individuals and organizations, it became abundantly clear that the other key piece of this thing is that the most powerful part of this is giving young people the voice in sharing what these warning labels should look like, right? It's fine for an old 61-year-old white guy to come up with the ideas, right? But it would be even better if we were young people who are on these platforms who come from all different walks of life, from all different parts of the world, for them to be the ones that come forward and say, you know what, this is what my friends might think is something that they would like to see on a warning label. This might be something that my friends, my brothers, my sisters, right, might look at and say, oh, that's really important, good information to have, right? So I think one of the things that we're most excited about is getting young people to be the ones that are creating these ideas and these images and these sounds and these words and putting them forward and saying, we want to be part of the solution because we're the ones that you're all concerned about, right? I've got a 24-year-old and a 22-year-old son and daughter, and I will tell you that, they like nothing annoys them more when dad has all the ideas about how they should live their life, right?
Yeah.
So they were the same way when they were 10 and 12. And so I think one of the lessons that I learned is, let the people who are the most impacted by this problem help be a part of the solution.
I love that. What is, for the partnerships you're looking for, what is like the ideal kind of candidate?
I think it's really anybody. We've got folks that are involved with this partnership that deal with suicide prevention, some that deal with mental health issues, others that deal with eating disorders. So I would say this is that if your audience that you're working with is adults, young people, or anybody that's on social media, right? So we've got small organizations, we've got big national organizations that are involved with it. So what I would say is the more the merrier. What we're looking for is folks that maybe they just want to put their name on our website and share some of the materials, right? For some, it may be they want to have somebody available who can talk to the press about why they're involved with this campaign. So there's any number of different points of entry for everybody. There's different ways for people to get involved. Our goal ultimately is to have partners that will help to continue to amplify the message about why warning labels on social media platforms can be part of a solution, not the only solution.
Great. Okay, so Julianne has a few things. One, she says, I'm happy to get involved and I'm in the UK. I've just followed you. I would be happy to share this on my platforms, which is awesome.
Fabulous.
Also, it's interesting how you spoke about cigarettes. We have the risk of health issues on packets here in the UK. Maybe something like this would be a good way to bring awareness.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that this is ultimately about awareness, right? Again, those of us who are involved in this space and in trying to protect online safety and things like that, I think we all assume that everybody knows what we're talking about, right? That every parent is aware of what's going on out there, or that every young person is aware of what's going on out there. That's simply not true. And so part of the benefit of this campaign is to raise more awareness amongst people, let them know that these harms are everywhere, right? They're not isolated to a single platform. They're not isolated to a single demographic, that these harms are ubiquitous. They rest everywhere. They are creating harms every single day. And we have an opportunity to label the risk. Okay. For those of you who've been watching, again, if you please reach out, be happy to talk to you about how to get involved with this, and thank everybody for the exceptional work that you're doing everywhere around the world to help protect the online spaces that we're all in. It makes a difference. Everybody makes a choice that we've got to get involved in ways that make a difference to us, and we're thrilled to be a part of this.
Thank you so much, Erich. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Thanks for your help.